is certainly an outcast life. When you live freedom's ring, you reflect back the bondage others willingly submit to. For the illusion of comfort, for the manufactured human, sold to the worker, over and over again, sold through a drive-thru. It is certainly an outcast life. When you live freedom's ring, you reflect back the bondage others willingly submit to. For the illusion of comfort, for the manufactured human sold to the worker, over and over again, sold through a drive-thru.
This podcast is based around the history and experiences of the infamous Shane Bugbee, recollected and retold by Shane Bugbee himself. Who is Shane? Well, you're about to find out. I'm your host, Nannerl, and this is Speak of the Devil.
Hi, and welcome back to Speak of the Devil podcast. I'm Nannerl, and this is part 2 of Shane Bugbee's story of how he arrived and was kicked out of Ely, Minnesota. Today, we delve into why he had to leave, how he left, and what happened next. So, Shane, you ready to roll? You ready to tell us?
I'm ready.
How did this all happen?
Oh, well, how did this all happen? The shunning, the whole thing, I think we left off on people praying. People would drop to their knees and start praying for me when I was buying broccoli in Ely, Minnesota. So, how did this all happen? Mm-hmm. Boy, that's an interesting. I'm not really well.
Let's put it this way. There's not many people who can truly say they have been discriminated against for being a Satanist. Your story is completely different than someone who chose to wear a clown costume, as you would put it, to a supermarket. You were going about your business.
Yeah, and I made sure to conform the best I could with the culture of the town. I wasn't there to scare people or stand out. I've never been that kind of person. I don't begrudge someone who wants to do that, but I wouldn't say I was conforming either, because that's a hard thing for me to do naturally. But I was there to help some dude who stroked out, a fireman, ex-fireman. So I had respect for his hard work, saving lives, running into burning buildings, and I was just trying to help some dude out when he stroked out, like I would want if I get older and stroke out. So it was just one of those human things. How it happened, I guess the Native Americans. We went to the tribe, and the president of the tribe told us it's because we stepped on too many toes at once. When I asked him, what does that mean? He's like, you started a soda company and didn't ask permission. Then you put out a newspaper and didn't ask for permission. Then when you started the newspaper, you put heartwarior, chosa, Native American on the cover. And he said, they're already angry at us because we bought their radio station, because the casino's doing so well. We're buying back Ely, Minnesota, one cheeseburger at a time. And so me siding with the natives, and not even siding with them, it was just like, hey, these people are cool. Why aren't they in the newspaper? Hey, this is some cool artwork. Why don't you guys put this in the newspaper? I don't even realize that, there's politics going on here. And, we don't like that kind of person. I didn't see it. I feel like naive or whatever, but I just thought it was fucking cool. And I'm like, well, if the local newspaper doesn't have an art column in it or anything, they don't have anything about art, it's all sports. So I said, with the soda pop money, because I'd started a soda pop up there, and it really took off and we're making a good amount of money. I was like, well, I'll start an arts and entertainment paper and show off all the art in town. And it was most of the art I liked was done by natives or people who had native blood in them somehow. And so that just was a byproduct of it. It wasn't like I was fetishizing natives either. I just made an art paper for the town because I like to read about art, because I'm an artist. And so he said I did all those things. We did the first podcast in Ely. So all those things, like it was literally, they were afraid of the devil. They were afraid of this. They were afraid of this person who was creating a podcast, and they had never even heard of what that was. They were like, what is he doing? He did a radio station, did a newspaper, he's doing a soda pop company. Where does this person come from? And so that's ultimately what the person who ran the tribe told me.
Do you think that ultimately you were attracted to, I'm going to call it giving back to a community that was there before you, the way that you helped the native people? But do you think that you were perhaps attracted to befriending them or like making nice with them because they were the adversary in this community?
I wish I recognized it as that. They were, but I'm unnaturally attracted to that adversary, right? But I just saw him as a component of what was Ely. And what you said there's so funny, because I kept saying, I want to give back to this town. This is the first time that I had been allowed into society. Prior to Ely, I had been an outcast and an underground artist. And so I was like, this is the first time I feel part of a society. And I wanted to give back. Like, I wanted to pay taxes. I wanted to help with the roads. I wanted to help in employment. I thought my business could offer employment to people. So I didn't see the natives as anything different. I thought they were Ely, just like the lumberjacks were, the miners. I just looked at them all from a foreign perspective of being from Chicago. And wow, this entire picture is cool. From the trees to the wolf to the natives to the white miner, all of it was really neat to me. And I just wanted to participate and give back to that community because it gave me an education. Because I went up there, I felt very arrogant. I was like, what does a small town have to offer me? I'm from Chicago. I'll shit almost fuck, And they did give me something. They gave me a different point of view. And anytime I can get a different point of view, a third perspective, a sixth perspective, a ninth perspective, interdimensional, inner perspective, I love it. And so I want to give back to people like that, so they'll give me more perspective or more intellectual conversation, more edification.
I think it's amazing that you came in with this very different mindset initially before knowing what you were getting into. Of like, what are they going to offer me? And then you ended up feeling like you owe them something. You wanted to give them something. That's quite noble, I think. And especially that you did this, you ended up doing this for the most marginalized group. Good on you.
It's always been a mistake on my part. Like, it's not a mistake, but it's like I stumble into it. I don't say it is a mistake, but I mistakenly stumble into that stuff because it's like, it's just a natural thing for me. I guess because I don't know why. I know Heartwarior said, like, I lack pretense. She goes, boy, you would be welcome on any reservation. And I found that to be true in my travels. And I said, why is that? She goes, anyone would welcome you into their res because you lack pretense. Most white men have pretense when they walk in. They have this pretense and you don't. And I think that has to do with my learning disability, as they call it. Like I've always been given the ADD, ADHD, Aspergers, all this stuff. So I think it has something to do with that.
Perhaps the inability to read certain things keeps you where your mindset or like your drive always looks at a different perspective, which ultimately keeps you immune to a lot of things.
I think the witches that were burned in Salem were probably like an Asperger's clique. They say Asperger's people are very much, they get together and they communicate and they can understand each other. But if outsiders of that community, Asperger's community, will listen, they'll be like, man, those people are freaks. Listen to them talk. And we're high-thinking intellectuals. I think we see the real deal. We don't see hypocrisy. We have an integrity. And I just saw them as human beings or, like a part of history and American history that I barely understood. I just don't see things like that. Like, it's weird because it becomes weird to me because so many other people see things like that. And so I've never have. And I can see things like that. I can when someone explains it to me. It's not like I can't. I just naturally don't. So I was just attracted to Heartwarior invited me over and she was just cool and the conversation was cool. And it was different. I mean, she's talking about, Native American ways and we'd be able to argue. And I remember back then I was like, destroy the handicap. And she's like, that's because you're a dumb white person. And I go, no, they're no use. And she goes, that's because you don't know how to use them. Native Americans find a use for everyone in their culture, everyone in their tribe. White men discard people. White people discard people left and right, but not natives. And I said, oh, bullshit. What will you do? What will you do with someone grossly malformed, can't even feed themselves, can't do anything, can't move? What would you do? And she goes, well, we would use them as fertilizer. We would use them to put them in the woods, something like that. but we would see it as a sacred use. We wouldn't just discard them or put them away in a home and isolate them. And so we would have great arguments, great intellectual debate. It was just wonderful. And that's why I was attracted to Heartwarrior. It wasn't because of her skin color, because of smoking a pipe or whatever. If anything, that stuff always freaks me out because I have insecurity issues. So when things get going on a path that I have no clue over, it sort of is weird.
Yeah. So your people that were cool with you were telling you that, the town doesn't like you being uppity. Basically uppity it is the word that I keep using, but your success came too fast. They don't trust you. They're suspicious of you. They want you gone. You talked about the grocery store and people just getting down and praying. And I mean, what comes next? What comes next after people pray for you and then you had an encounter with policeman? Did this policeman stay on your side?
Oh, the Danzig moment.
Yes.
Well, no, he didn't really stay on my side. That was the end of our stay there.
Okay.
Oh, it's such a wild story, and it goes all over the place, I guess, but it's pretty, like I said, it was just rough. I remember then during it, I went to LA, because we moved to LA shortly thereafter. We left there and moved to LA. And I took an offer because at that point, my soda wasn't selling. No one would buy the soda, and they wouldn't even pay for the soda that they had bought. So we were running out of money, and I took some opportunities out in LA to make film, porn. And so I made the first satanic porno, and I dedicated it to Ely, Minnesota. It's called Club Satan, the Witch's Sabbath.
Wow.
And, oh, yeah. So I went out there and I wanted my transgressive revenge. I was the angriest I went back to my angry artist phase. And I was like, okay, you motherfuckers, guess what? I know soda pop's a psychological game. I know people buy it based on the color and the sugar. And I know all of your fucking children, when they get older, are going to go, whatever happened to the Ely soda guy? And when they run it on the internet, right, and fuck you. And so, okay, you're asking, how did it happen? And a part of it is like what's in might is right. It was just a competitor across town who was jealous of my success. A couple of people like that were upset that I was having more success than they ever had. And they had lived up to their at some point they felt they owned the success quota there. I wasn't entitled to be lucky, because that's what success is a lot of times, is luck.
Oh, definitely.
It's not anything. Yeah, so I was lucky, and they felt, so they looked me up online and used anything they could to get me out of that successful position.
Now, is this before or after you went to LA? This is before you went to LA.
This is before, because okay. I went to LA because this shunning was happening. I was okay, well, I give up being part of society. I give up being part of this guy that was actually enjoying, like, people going, hey, there's the soda guy. And, like, young people or children even, and moms and dads were like, hey, soda guy, thanks for the soda, blueberries, and I was like, wow, this is weird. Normal people are waving at me and saying hi. This is pretty cool. It was nice for a moment, and then they took it from me. So I went to Ely and made the hardest fucking porn I could, a porn that people in the porn industry ran from. It was nominated for one of the worst or most upsetting or most shocking sex scenes ever in porn. And so, I had a guy jerk off on a bust of Jesus's face. Yeah, that's one scene. You have to check it out, kids. Kids, I mean that. Kids. Over 18, of course. Yeah, it was it was my revenge. I get my revenge through artwork. And I wanted to hurt people's feelings and do that, because that's what they were doing to me and my partner.
Do people in Ely just gossip word of mouth, or did they email each other, call each other? Do you know how the word got out about your doings?
Well, it was small town word of mouth. Oh man, yeah, it was all that, and then we started. People were starting to act out. Like I said, praying at the grocery store, and it just kept building and building to a very tense situation. And like I remember artist friends of ours that were friends, we were friends, and they had to turn their back on us. They'd see us I remember one lady started crying in the middle of the street. It's like, oh, I can't talk to you. And even heartwarior eventually even heartwarior eventually, like towards the end when her son was arrested, she goes, I can't talk to you guys anymore. I got 15 calls going to the movie with you guys. I can't do this.
People called her because she went to the movies with you guys?
Yeah, we saw you with the Satanist.
Christ!
Oh yeah, that's how this happens. Like they really do a run you out of town. So at that point we got a death threat. And then like 2 days later the Baptist pastor calls my house and he's like saying, are you this and are you this? And I'm like, hey dude, we're not gonna have this conversation on the phone, buddy. We're gonna do this face to face. Where are you? And he wouldn't tell me at first. He kept asking. I go, listen, dude, I'm gonna find where you are right now and I'm gonna come to you and you're gonna tell me this to my face.
I feel like him calling like that is like trying to keep you still in one spot so they can get you.
Well, maybe I didn't give a fuck. I wanted to see, you're going to tell me this to my face. You're going to have to see me and feel me. I'm not being a tough guy by saying, I say it to my face, I'm going to hurt him. I'm going to say, you're going to have to say this and look me in the eye as I respond. And so, I went to his church and he's like, it was wild because then we started to have dinner with him for a couple of weeks, trying to make good and trying to be political, but it was too late. But he was like, I know Satan's real. I've seen him. He actually saw Satan with his own two eyes. This is also the Baptist pastor who offered me a job. He's like, Shane, if you flip, you'll have a 2-car garage, a nice pool. I can show you. And he showed me. So this guy was a Satanist, but he didn't have a name like yours. I mean, we can offer you a lot if you just turn. And I was like, wow.
That's almost like a deal with the devil kind of thing.
Yeah, right. Who's the devil there?
Jesus.
Right. Right. So we had this heavy thing going on, but when I went and talked to him, he's like, you know what we're about to do? We've met with all the 7 churches here. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, every church that was up there, Protestant, Catholic, Christian, they all had a meeting about us, and they were about to put a proclamation in the newspaper, and that proclamation had our address on it. And he said, and then when we put the proclamation in the newspaper, we come and paint your door red. And I go, what does that mean? And they go, we burn you out of town. And I was like, holy shit, dude. This is like from the 1800s. And that's why I say, like, I feel like the witches of Salem, they're probably Asperger's people. I think the best witches are Asperger's people. People with high thinking, people that they say have learning disabilities are actually very in touch with the psychic world, ESP, feelings, vibes. Anyway, what he was saying was absolutely true. We tried to work through it. And that's when heartwarior was getting all these calls. And then like a week later, our landlord, and she was the wife of the head of the philosophy department of Minnesota University. He had just passed away of Alzheimer's. So they were high-end intellectuals, and she called us and said, Shane, you have to leave. They're going to come and get you now. And I go, what? And she goes, you should leave tonight, in the next 48 hours. And then heartwarior called and said, hey, you've got to leave. They're coming to get you. And so we packed up that evening. We got a U-Haul, a small one to attach to the truck. Threw what we could in, and lost most of my artwork and most of my art supplies. Left behind my bike and everything we had. We had to leave most of our stuff behind and leave in the middle of the night.
Now, previous to this part 2 episode, I did a little bit of digging around, and there was an article put out about you called Sympathy for the Devil, and it was in citypages.com. And it talked about kind of your experiences doing this. And it mentioned that there was this letter that was like printed, like shitloads of them or something. And they were like strung around town. What did the letter say?
The Scarlet Letter.
Yes.
Basically, we have Satanists in our town. Don't support them. They are doing a soda pop company and funneling it to Satanism and satanic church. And every single thing they do is goes to a satanic church. So do not help them. Do not employ them. Do not give them any dollars. Quit paying Quit paying your bills. Stuff like that. It was a real short letter. It didn't say all of that, but that's what it came down to. And people did, like the good people of the community who paid their bills and had great credit. Those store owners decided not to pay me the $1,800 they owed me all of a sudden. All this stuff started.
They ripped you off that much money.
Oh, more than that. I had a soda pop stock company. So you could count that times 10, like, 1,800, like 18,000. Yeah, it was pilfered. All my shit was sold out of the house when we left. I mean, yeah, they took everything from us. They took everything. All my hard work went away. And this is where the 666 Eve thing ties in, because people were really pissed off that the Church of Satan didn't defend us ever. People were really pissed off. They're like, man, this guy just did something with nothing, went up there, had nothing, went to help a stroke victim, created a soda company, is thriving, is having it taken from him for nothing that he's done wrong legally, just for who he is. And we can't even say one word like we're opposed to that,
Yeah.
So that was a big deal at the 666 Eve event, and that was also happening when we were being shunned. I was still living in Ely when we did the 666 Eve event, and that was in the middle of it too. And when I went out to the 666 Eve event, if you see the video, there's a pornographer there, Rob Black, and he offered me a gig as a pornographer. He's like, listen, why don't you come out since you're being shunned? I'll give you some work. I'll hook you up. I'll help you out. And he did for a minute. It was really kind of him. Then we moved to LA and did the porn, and I could not stay in LA. I just did not like the people, and I did not like all the meetings. I did a ton of meetings, and my friends were all like, man, I've been here 3 years. I've been dying for one meeting. You've just done 11 meetings in a week. And I'm like, yeah, but all people do out here is meet. Fuck that shit. So I left.
Bullshit, and then nothing gets made.
Right. A lot of lunches. But then we went on a road trip for the Year at the Wheel. We did that book and movie Year at the Wheel. So that's what happened next.
I see. Now, is Year at the Wheel part of, I saw a video online of you, and you, on one part, it's edited so brilliantly. The first part, it shows you yelling back and forth with this guy with a bicycle, and then it shows you talking to police. But while you're standing next to the police, there's the audio going on, like the conversation between you and this older gentleman. Did this happen after 666 Eve during Year at the Wheel?
Oh, that happened when my partner's father finally died. And I had went up there to help her. She needed help cleaning out his house after his funeral. I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral with my partner because they said they would hurt me. So I had to wait until the funeral was over, and I went up there to help her take care of her business.
Was she able to go to her father's funeral?
She was, yes.
Okay.
She was. I wasn't. But she wanted me to be there, and she wasn't able to have that. It was an awful thing still. So I went up there with a camera to make sure I was safe and a recorder. And when I saw Mike Hillman in the grocery store, I saw him at the gas station there where the film is. And so to back up a second, A Year at the Wheel was the art project that I came up with after being shunned. And it was like a glorified, hey, we're about to be homeless and having let's make something of this. And so that's what that was. But then magic, right. So, but when I saw this gentleman in the grocery store or the gas station, it triggered me out. And I didn't know what a trigger was at the time, but I could tell you I was triggered in a homicidal way. And so I turned my audio recorder on in my pocket, and I was like, then I went up to the guys like, hey, Mike, can I talk to you? And I really meant to just ask him in a compassionate way why things happen. And when he's like, no, I don't talk to people like you, I was like, boom, triggered. And when you see that video, in my mind, things started to go in slow motion at some point because I was about to hurt that guy in a way that I couldn't have controlled myself. And I probably would have been in prison because I started to go in slow motion when he banged his bike into mine. I was like, oh, I'm going to grab you by the eye sockets and I'm going to smash your head into that curb until it's soup. And that's not something I like to recall, and it's not something I like to admit, but that was what was happening there when I was yelling at that guy. I was going to kill him.
The level of rage you have in this was scary. I almost dropped my phone watching it. It was quite surprising. It comes across, yeah. Yes, because this is also a Shane I didn't know. Listeners, I've only known Shane for a few months, even though I feel like I've known him for years. And
yeah,
I feel, and that was a different person. That Shane, I felt like, I don't know if I would like this Shane. Jesus Christ. But I watched that video about, I'm not even kidding, about 11, 12 times in a row, just trying to take it in and understand it. And the more I watched it, the more sympathetic toward you I became. I saw what kind of fucking narcissist, what kind of asshole that guy was. And then when you said that you made, he made your partner cry, and then how, and he so, like, unearnestly said, oh, well, I'm sorry I hurt your feeling, kind of thing. It's like, he kind of little ladied that person. And
yeah.
And then, like, just how he just wanted to dismiss you and just bumble on his way. He didn't want to deal with it because he had the privilege of the small town protecting him, it seemed like. But it also felt like he's never been called out ever in his life. That was something.
Yeah, he seemed to be in shock, that's for sure. I just know that it was a surreal moment for me, that I was starting to lose grip of. I was not fully present. I was starting to almost black out, and it's not really a nice thing to have that happen to you. It's unfortunate. I don't know if I wish I wouldn't have did that, but I wish I wasn't in that position. I don't know how to explain that. But I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you that video there, when we talk about Satanism and the Temple of Satan, that video there is we're on a road trip and stuff. I'm talking to Doug, and this is where the Satanic Temple's forming, all the way from the 24-hour radio show. That one, there was the S word letter I wrote to Peggy and Peter, and that video pushed Doogie over the top. That pushed him over the top, and we had a good friendship, a great love. And he was like, I saw that video. When I seen that video, I want to go to Ely and beat the shit out of that guy. And we are going to get revenge on them. We are going to get revenge on all of these people now. And that, when you want to talk about the Satanic Temple, the premise of it between me and Doug, it was about revenge on people like that. It was about that. I don't know what Kevin's goal is. I think it's more about control and moving people. But at that point, we were looking to do something in a big way to hurt people like that for what they did to me and my partner, and what they do to other people, and how they victimize the people in the margins constantly in those small towns. If our goal was anything in the work we did together, it was to break down that moral code that empowered people to hurt others in the name of their belief system.
Or just
they
how
were
about
forgiven.
How about the fact that this guy, he was a fucking small town hero, and with his like fucking radio storyteller thing, and the fact that an outsider had experience with radio and would have blown his fucking bullshit wide open because he was a fucking joke.
Oh, I love your perspective on that. And I think you'd written it in a different, maybe a little different way. Like, oh, you said something in a text about how he didn't want anyone to be more important than him. He was a true narcissist.
Oh, absolutely. He didn't want you to be a hero. He wanted to be the hero of the town.
Right, and I think that there is a constant in my life, and it's a constant in most 1%ers' lives, most Satanists' lives, most people who are living a free life or have such an extreme talent, or they struggle to have such an extreme talent that maybe they're very good looking, or maybe they just look different and they're attractive in their confidence in what they do, or maybe their sexuality comes out in their artwork when they make something, they create a great painting or a cello performance, and they radiate brilliance and sexuality, and that stuff is what you're talking about. I think that most 1%ers, satanic people, stuff like that, have to fight against or accept. We just accept it and move along. We don't fight against it a lot. We just more haters. Haters gonna hate. Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's all I can say about that, Hate the game, not the player. And so I think what you said there sums that up. And that was a really great, insightful thing that when you wrote it to me, I was like, man, that feels like my whole fucking life. Every person who's ever been against me. Because then people who aren't against me or people like me, they'll be like, what are they doing wrong? They just made success. They just made something cool. Why are you mean to them? Why are you going to hate? Mm-hmm. Most cool observers are like that.
I think that people within that 1%, regardless of what they identify themselves as, can all be put under the category as enigmas.
Yeah. And like we were talking about this episode, we were talking about LaVey a couple episodes ago. People calling him Howard, people disrespecting him. It's the same kind of concept. It's like haters gonna hate, What's your name again? Guess what? I already forgot,
Yeah, while you're calling yourself, like, Midnight Fudge Nightwish or whatever, you're shitting on Anton LaVey, who changed his name, from Levy to LaVey. Well, at least it's not Nightwish or, Count, Shitfire or whatever.
I'm sorry he's not an accountant where he didn't have to change his name. He became something that was like that's the idea. Like, I hate people like that, truly hate them, because the act of being an artist is a very generous act. You mean to be an artist to me is to lose yourself always. You're never a being anymore. You are owned by everything else. You are on this trail. So when he gave away his personality, he gave away his life by changing his name. He gave it all to us. And for that sacrifice is like the heroic duty of an artist or a fireman. I see artists and firemen similar a lot of times. Scientists, people who go to the moon, astronauts, we're all explorers, and to the point of sacrificing ourselves for the exploration, not sitting here just dealing with these moments of comfort that we all love and want. Some people sacrifice, and I think LaVey was one of those people that sacrificed. And I most certainly know that it's a sacrifice. It's a self-rewarding sacrifice, though. It's not like a Christian sacrifice. It's like an accomplishment. Like, well, I passed up a lot of cake, but now I'm fitting into those jeans. You see, I got a reward bigger than the cake.
Good job, Shane. I'm going to continue eating my cake because I have an elastic waistband on my pants today. So you can just suck it.
Hey, I want some cake. I want some cake right now. I'm just saying, like, you're a cello player. You're a magician yourself. You know sacrifice.
Absolutely. Do you know how many fucking parties I missed out on, how many social settings that I do not go to because I had to stay home and practice?
I do. I could tell you probably 95% of them.
It's the same with, childhood. Most of my experiences I can remember revolve around practicing.
Right. Exactly.
And sometimes it's not what you want to hear. It's not always what you want to play. It's what you gotta do. And it's the sacrifice I made. Whereas, the amateur musician, sometimes I envy amateur musicians because they have the luxury of picking whatever time they want to play and playing whatever they want. And that's an absolutely, interesting thing to me because I've never experienced that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. The sacrifice. But it's not when a childish person who's reading satanic literature will say, oh, they sacrifice. Well, they couldn't be me. I don't sacrifice anything.
No, I'm being myself. And okay, look, Mr. Nightwish, you're being yourself, but you still live with your mom, and Walmart fired you after 2 days of you showing up wearing fangs.
Or maybe not. Maybe they're just ultra privileged and can't see the writing on the wall of privilege. Like, man, just admit that you had some luck, yo. Admit that you had some fucking luck. Quit playing it like you made it this way. You had luck. Success has a lot of luck to do it. Yes, there's some struggle and there's a lot of talent, and there's a lot of talented motherfuckers who don't get heard. I've seen a lot of great guitarists or artists in basements that never get seen or heard, and they have a hell of a lot of talent.
Yes.
Luck. And I don't, that's what blows me away. People just don't realize the luck of it, or the magician who can rise above and be lucky on a continuous basis or more often than not. The genius, like when people make fun of Danzig, I want to smack the shit out of him almost. I'm like, that guy's fucking great. He's fucking been accomplished forever. How many people have 6 careers like that guy? He's like a 6-headed beast.
Yeah.
And he goes and shops for his cat. I mean, the guy's at fucking everything.
Or these people who shit on LaVey, I've always wondered if people marginalized him because he is technically a threatening minority. He was a Jew, and he was a very threatening Jew, basically. And it's kind of like, people don't always like minorities behaving outside of the box. They want them to do what they expected them to be. So they wanted him to be Howard, so calling him Howard makes them feel better because Howard suddenly is doughy and Howard will not threaten them. Howard's not as brilliant as Anton. And so I think that people want to put people in their place like that. Just like people get shitty over successful black people.
I don't think it's a people thing. I think they want to put the people from the margins back in the margins. And I think what you said is exactly right. Like the essence of tattoo art was about fear me. I'm wearing tattoos, now back off. And it wasn't fashionable. The minute it became fashionable, it was a white, rich thing. And the same with the Temple of Satan stuff, or the satanic, LaVey being this, like you said, imagine that a Jew in the 30s having to fight back and be scary. So he decided, I'm going to be scary. I'm going to scare the shit out of you. You're not going to play games with me anymore. I'm going to spook you. And he comes up with this whole thing and does it. And he spooks the fuck out of things. And you know, now the Temple of Satan is this big white world or whatever running things. All these people, they want to put everyone back in the margins. Oh, the poor people, get over there. Let's make fun of them. Let's make fun of this person. Let's make fun of that person. Fuck these people, man. Fuck them. Accomplishment reigns supreme. Bow down to it or fucking hit the road.
So we're up at our time, actually. But if you have any questions for us or for Shane, you can always visit us at
speakofthedevilpod@gmail.com.
For more about Shane Bugbee, you can visit shanebugbee.com or catch him on Twitter. Just go to @ShaneBugbee. Hit him up. Follow him. Follow his art. Follow his ideas. Challenge him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that. Do that. Challenge me.
All clapbacks welcome, especially clapbacks with cake and tits.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
So for this episode, this really closes up this story here. I'm really sorry that you had to go through that in Ely. That's absolute shit, and props to you for holding your integrity and not changing for those people. That's very admirable.
Well, thank you. The small town was one thing. I've been run out of Chicago once, Hammond, Indiana. It's like a constant when you're public, aggressive, transgressive artist, you know, so it just goes with it's the history of it. It's just the lot we chose.
Satanism is a very young religion compared to others, and I feel like there's so much about this topic if you look up Shane Bugbee, Ely, Minnesota, and it's there. You're immortalized. Unfortunately, your pain has been immortalized, and posthumously, this is going to be part of it, even way after our time. Say the way that people study Jewish history, Christian history, Buddhism, they're gonna look at this as part of satanic history because it really is. And I think people should really respect your history.
Ah, wow! Thank you very much. It's nice to hear. I know that, and it's a lot of times a rough time living through that. You know, having a part of history is a responsibility that I wouldn't wish upon anyone, because you have to take every little thing and be responsible about it because of your legacy. You have to think about your legacy. And it's not my legacy. It is what you said, what I dedicated my life to, which is the left-hand path.
Definitely. And I think that, I think Anton would have been very proud of that. And I think that really is a testament to his good judge of character as well. He totally saw you. He saw you and he wanted to see more of you, and you impressed him. And I feel like this is just as, if not more, impressive. And so, fantastic.
Yeah, he was a cool guy, that's for sure. He really knew how to pick them.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and tune into our next episode wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. You can find us at Speak of the Devil Pod on Twitter and contact us at speakofthedevilpod@gmail.com. For Shane's artwork or to support his endeavors, please visit shanebugbee.com or find him on Twitter at ShaneBugbee. I've been Nannerl. Have a good one.
Oh, and shaneisthedevil.com.